All right, let's turn to this before we get to Ben Dixon. I have to tell you that I know there are times where I don't get too emotional in situations like this, but I found this really moving. Meghan McCain has been taking Ilhan Omar's comments, and it has been really devastating for her.
Can I just ask before we do this?
All the things that are said and go back and forth, and Meghan has been really, really strong, throughout this entire period where we have seen such an increase in hate groups and in physical violence and by the right, and she has been a real trooper. But
she's never prevaricated. I mean, any single instance, whether it's Trump or whether it's an incident
I'm just saying that
she has been
totally
consistently 100% opposed to all forms of bigotry.
But she's just hit her limit with what's happened with Ilhan Omar.
When we had Barry, let me just finish. When we had Barry Weiss on as an expert in what is anti-Semitic and what isn't, I asked her, is it okay to talk about Israel's policies and not be called anti-Semitic?
And she said yes.
She said yes. She said where it crosses the line is when you say that Israel does not have the right to exist. That is when it crosses the line. Now, Omar has never suggested that Israel does not have the right to exist.
Can I say what she has said?
So, to me, it seems to me that Republicans are trying to use this as a wedge issue.
I'm really not.
And I think that...
Not you. I'm not talking about you.
This selective outrage is kind of crazy, because I don't think that the Republicans have moral high ground here.
But it seems like Democrats
I think
are upset
that
too,
Kevin
though.
McCarthy has used these anti-Semitic tropes. I think that Jim Jordan just recently, tweeted this
against Tom Steyer.
Remember that Ilhan Omar in the West Virginia Republican Party just had this huge poster superimposed with her face with 9/11 terrorists. And I haven't heard any outrage about that coming from the Republican Party. And all that to say is that this selective outrage, and I will tell you, I take this very personally as a woman of color who has been the subject of so much bigotry. And what a lot of people don't know is that my grandfather is Jewish. He is a Sephardic Jew. And so I have... my family members have received a lot of bigotry. So,
but I know Joe Lieberman.
I've experienced firsthand in my family anti-Semitism and bigotry for being black. And so I just, this whole, thing, I think it's just a distraction.
All right, pause it for a second. That is Sonny Hostin, who is now like my favorite daytime talk show.
You are such a relentless, self-hating Jew.
Comfortable with me speaking now?
Hey, pause it. Well, you got to go back because really, now so Meghan is trying to interrupt Sonny throughout this, and she can't. And even Abby Huntsman was trying to interrupt Sonny throughout this, and she can't. Sonny just blew through her. And so I have a feeling the fact that Meghan was, feels ganged up on by Joy and Sonny. I mean, this is so silly that we're talking about this, but millions of people get their perspective on these things through this. I mean, The View is so much more effective in getting a political message across than this program that it is impossible for me to even contemplate. So this stuff is relevant. And so Sonny and Joy are basically, taking the lead here. And I think that's as much of a reason why Meghan McCain gets so emotional here than anything else. Watch this.
And so I just, this whole, thing, I think it's just a distraction.
Are you comfortable with me speaking now?
Letting someone finish feels like being
interrupted.
Yes.
Okay. So she also said Israel has hypnotized the world, suggested that Jews in Israel have bought U.S. politicians all about the Benjamins, implied that American Jews have divided loyalties, and it's okay for people to push
Pause it. None of this is true. The only thing she did say was that Israel has hypnotized the world. And I would take issue with the word hypnotized, because really what they have done is sent out squads of former Mossad agents in private organizations to change and to intimidate, literally to intimidate people who critique Israel in this country. That's not hypnosis. In many respects, it's worse. And this is something that she tweeted in 2012, deleted, and apologized for. And frankly, I got to tell you, like, it may be inappropriate language for a congressperson because you're in a, you know, like I tell my son, hey, we're at a restaurant. Don't keep talking about your penis, because not that there's anything wrong with your penis, but just like, it's just, there are things that are more appropriate in other situations. At home, you can talk about it with me if you want.
Yeah, English is like her third language. Well, so it's not on her if she didn't know the association with that word.
But even if she meant it as she did, the reality is we know that there is, and I personally know this, and I mentioned this the other day, like, you know, Israel is extremely aggressive in dealing with their critics, and you know, from whether I was on a radio show and I get contacted from the Israeli embassy the next day I critique Israel, or whether they're sending out former Mossad agents to harass people, and this is all well documented. I mean, there was a story this past week in it. So, yeah. But everything else she says about the dual loyalties and referring to Jews simply did not happen. This is getting your news from the Daily Caller and their interpretation of what she said.
Allegiance to a foreign country. I again say, why this obsession with Jerusalem and Israel? Why this obsession with this specific area of the country? And as you said,
pause it. She also is a huge critic of Saudi Arabia, which Meghan McCain doesn't know, because Meghan McCain has done nothing except for read the Daily Caller about this.
As you said, as you've said many times, these are dog whistle comments for Jewish Americans.
Yes,
they are.
We
agree. And they hear what she's saying. And
she had to apologize for that.
But you have to admit, Meghan, that it is disingenuous of the Republican Party to go after her. This is her point, when they are backing a president who is in bed with dictators committing human rights violations
really
all over the world.
Traffics in bigotry. Traffics in bigotry.
Let's go there.
So just really quickly, since we're talking about I take this very personally. I would go so far as to say I probably verge on being a Zionist as well. But I will say that I don't have family that is Jewish, but Joe Lieberman and Hadassah Lieberman are my family.
Yeah.
And I take the hate crimes rising in this country incredibly seriously, and I think what's happening in Europe is really scary. And I'm sorry if I'm getting emotional, but the idea that this is politicized, I'm really not. I was very nervous to talk about this on the show because I thought it would become politicized, and it really shouldn't be. On both sides, it should be called out.
Right.
And just because I don't technically have Jewish family that are blood related to me, it doesn't mean I don't take this as seriously, and it is very dangerous. Very dangerous. And I think we all collectively as Americans on both sides, and what Ilhan Omar is saying is very scary to me, and it's very scary to a lot of people, and I don't think you have to be Jewish to recognize that.
And I just hope instead of a resolution just from the Democrats, I'm tired of the selective outrage, and I hope that we have a joint resolution perhaps from Republicans and from the Democrats. I would be in favor of a joint resolution.
Well, just actually, because I'm not Jewish doesn't mean I can't do fake outrage and ridiculous crass identity politics. Incidentally, I have to say, to defend the Jewish people, you picked two of the worst Jewish people in human history. Joe and Hadassah Lieberman are your doorway to Jewish
they're completely out of the mainstream of Jewish thought.
They're
in this
marginal
country.
in Jewish thought.
And so you don't have to be Jewish to be outraged at Ilhan Omar's comments. And actually, it's probably a liability to that end, because I am quite confident, and we haven't seen any polling, but I am quite confident that the majority of Jews in this country are not concerned with her comments.
Well, I also have to say, too, in addition to how disgusting and fake that came off to me, and how, of course, Joe Lieberman is not helping your case, I'm going to go back to Hillary Clinton, Chelsea Clinton's trash, disgusting tweets about Ilhan Omar lecturing her on not only anti-Semitism, but actually citizenship in this country a couple of weeks ago. And so, like, what is it with trust fund baby children of prominent politicians who had everything handed to them, impugning the integrity and patriotism of somebody who came from a refugee camp to be in Congress, who has worked more hard and is more self-made in an afternoon than they are in a lifetime. It's disgusting.
No, she poses a threat to the bipartisan neoconservative foreign policy consensus. Therefore, she's very dangerous to them. And, you know, they're going to use whatever underhanded means they can to silence her.
I also think Meghan McCain is married to the head of the Federalist, which maybe doesn't have the same weepy relationship to Joe Lieberman.
Yeah, here's a couple of just headlines from the Federalist. Steve Bannon isn't anti-Semitic because Jewish girls are whiny.
Wow. Right. That's kind of funny. I'm sorry.
Well, it's not only funny; it's also true. But I would say that, you know, again, what's great about this is like, these are people that, first of all, Republicans spend all day either just denying actual acts of racism or any other form of bigotry, or if they're Meghan McCain and they want plausible deniability, they pretend that something isn't there. And now all of a sudden they can impugn subtlety when it comes to her.
All right, we got to take a quick break. When we come back.